basically almost the same as 3 and 4, but number 5, it wants me to find JL. That is the total. If you always draw this little segment to make sure you're trying to find the total, it helps, and it will help you set it up correctly, because now I can just write that this is the 5x plus 2. And so it's easier to see that I would have 27 plus 3x minus 1 equals 5x plus 2. First thing, combine these like terms on the left, which would give me 3x plus 26. 27 minus 1 is 26. And I still have 5x plus 2 on the right. I'm going to move my x to the left. So minus 5x minus 5x. That'll leave me with negative 2x plus 26 equals 2. Subtract 26. That leaves me with negative 2x equals negative 24. And then if I divide by negative 2, that's going to give me x equals positive 12. Again, for this one, I'm not done because it wants to find JL. This time JL is that 5x plus 2, right? So you always have to go back and make sure you're plugging it into the one that is actually asking you to plug into. You don't just pick a random one. So if I know that JL equals 5x plus 2, replace the x with 12. So now I have JL equals 5 times 12 plus 2. 5 times 12 is 60. 60 plus 2 is 62. On number 6, they were nice to you. You only have to find the value of x. It tells you that from C to E is 7x plus 4. So I have x plus 3 plus 8x minus 9 equals 7x plus 4. Because it's still this piece plus this piece equals the whole, right? So really this one I just have a lot more combining like terms. So on the left side I have x plus 8x, which would make 9x. 3 minus 9 would change to 9x minus 6. 3 minus 9 is negative 6. I still have 7x plus 4 on the right side. I'm going to subtract 7x from the right, which leaves me with 2x minus 6 equals 4. Add 6, 2x equals 10. Divide by 2, and x equals 5, right? Now, you should be able to understand, and we're going to skip the next example because the only difference in the next example is it asks the value of all three pieces. If I want to know the value of CD, DE, and CE, I just have to plug x back into all three of those individually, right? So we're going to move over to the next page, and we're going to do the midpoint of a segment, 2 examples, and then that'll be the last of these notes. Midpoint is important because if I'm talking about being directly in the middle of something, that should mean both sides are equal, right? So this is not just in between, this is directly in the middle. And so the midpoint of a segment is a point that divides the segment into two congruent segments. A line, ray, or segment that intersects a segment at its midpoint is said to bisect. This is a big word. Circle it. You're going to see it a lot throughout all of geometry. A segment, and it's called the segment bisector. And so we're just going to make a little note. Bisect means splits in two equal parts. Make sure you write that down. And so, if I'm looking in the diagram on the left, B is the midpoint. That's the part that's directly in the middle of A and C. So B is the midpoint of the segment AC. And the line L, so that's this line that's going through B, is a segment bisector of the segment AC. Now, I need to go over to this picture and talk about this a little bit. So B is the middle of A and C, right? I know this just by looking at the picture and not from any of the stuff I wrote down because of these little marks that we need to talk about. Anytime you see those marks, that means those two segments that the marks are on are equal. It means they're congruent. These are congruent marks. And remember, congruent marks mean that they're equal. And so, throughout the class, anytime we know two things are congruent, or two things are equal, we are going to put those marks on there to make sure that we remember that they are equal. And when I go down here and do 8 and 9, it tells me Q is the midpoint of PR. So if Q is directly in the middle, that means PQ and QR are congruent or equal. So I'm going to put those dashes on there. Basically, I'm doing that to remind myself if these are equal, I don't need to add them together, because if I'm just trying to find the value of x, how do you think I would set up an equation with this? Is equal to 4x plus 2, because, one, right now it's not necessarily asking me to find the whole thing. It doesn't give me what PR would be, right? And so if it doesn't give you what the whole segment's going to be, that's probably a good indicator you're not going to do this piece plus this piece equals the whole thing. Since it's the midpoint, I know these two are equal, so I don't need the entire length. All I need to know is that the 7x minus 16 has to equal the 4x plus 2. and then I can go and solve to find that. So I would subtract 4x from the right side, and that leaves me with 3x minus 16. And then that leaves me with just 2 on the right.
Not negative 2.
No, because it's 4x plus 2. And so then I add 16 to both sides. I'm going to move this up to here. I still have the 3x. The 16 goes away. 2 plus 16 is 18. Divide by 3. And x is 6. Since this question only asks for the value of x, I can stop there. Number 9 starts the same way. H is the midpoint of the segment GI. So I know those two pieces are congruent. But this wants me to find GH. So after I find X, I'll have to go back and plug it back into the GH, right? So I have 5x plus 2 equals the 9x minus 10. Subtract the 9x. I have negative 4x plus 2 equals negative 10. Subtract the 2. I'll move this up to here. Negative 4x equals negative 2 minus, negative 10 minus 2 would be negative 12. Divide by negative 4. And that x is going to be 3. But remember, I'm not done because it asks for the value of GH. GH is this left side, so that's the 5x plus 2, right? Replace the x with 3. 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 2 is 17. So GH would equal 17. Without doing any math, what would HI equal? The same thing if you've already done everything correctly, right? So that's a good way to check your math. Because if I do 9 times 5, or not 5, 9 times 3 minus 10, I should still get 17. If you do that, you do. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 minus 10 is 17. So that's a good way to check. And then, I'm not going to go over number 10. We're running out of a little bit of time. But if I was doing number 10, where it says to find QS, I start everything the same way, right? QS is the total. But let's say I did all my math and I got that QR was 5. Well, RS would also have to be 5, right? And so how would I find the total? 5 plus 5 would be 10. That's not what that answer is, but that's how you do that. So on the next page, or there'll be an assignment that will have the segment addition and the midpoints that will be uploaded.